welcome back to what I'm sure will be another amazing episode of Becoming the Light from the Shadows of Abuse, where of course we interview amazing women who have overcome extreme trauma from the past, whatever it may be, to create success in their lives. And obviously success looks different for everyone, but we all know that trauma has an impact. It changes who we are, and everyone that we interview has done enormous work on themselves to get themselves to where they are today. And today's guest is Marsha Schults, and I'm going to hand over to you. Marsha's going to introduce herself, and then we're going to hear all about her story, what happened to her, and how she became the person she is today, and how she does the work she does. So always so inspired, and just excited to have Marsha here, because this is all about how our bodies, how our immune system is affected by trauma. So thank you, Marsha. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on today. Very excited to reach a wider audience and share my story with more women and men as well. So I live in Brisbane and I'm 47 years old. So I'm in Australia. I have one daughter, and she's 20 years old now. And we have a wonderful life here now together. It's been a long time coming though, because she was also born with some medical issues. So it's been a tough time. And it's wonderful to be able to speak to everyone today on this podcast, because so many people do suffer trauma in their lives, and it can be ongoing trauma, it can be the same thing, or it can be different types of trauma. For me, it was it started when I was a baby. I felt very abandoned. I felt like I was neglected. My older sister wasn't that way. She was 2 years older than me. She seemed to be, the favourite, or the one at least getting all the attention. So I straight away from an early age thought, what's wrong with me? How come they don't like me? What did I do something wrong? Am I not good enough? So it was very strange that I felt so excluded. I started eating lots of sugary things behind my mother's back when I was younger, because I wanted to feel good, and that made me feel good. So that's when eating issues started at a very young age, probably about 5, 6 or 7 years old. I can't exactly remember when.
And I think this is very important. Sorry to stop you. It's very important that people understand. Sometimes people don't realize how early these ideas about yourself, your perception of yourself, whether the people around you were treating your sister differently or whether they weren't, but how you took on this perception. This is so important, that you took on the perception because you were a child, and because you don't have the skills and the language to look at your environment in a logical way. Everyone does this. As a child, you look at your environment from an emotional point of view. Yes. And instead of looking at the adults and saying, well, that's not very nice of them, they should know better than that, why aren't they treating us both the same, which is what we do logically as an adult. But as a child, you look at it and it has to be about you. It has to be your fault. So what you take on, and I'm saying this to everyone listening, so that they understand that this is what you do, this is where your ideas come from, and from a very early age, you take it on about you.
Yes,
and
exactly.
That's the story you're telling yourself, and everything that happens from there to you seems to confirm what you have already decided. And this is where these ingrained beliefs come from. So I just thought that was such a brilliant point to make so early on. And I think so many people will resonate with that it's worth pointing out that, yes, you're right, this is what we do. This is what we all do.
That's right. We put a meaning to things, and we're way too young to do that. But we grow up with that, and we're not shown differently. That behaviour from both my parents really continued, and I've forgiven both of them. My mother's passed away now. She passed away 2 years ago. We had a good relationship towards the end. And that was because through all of the trauma that I've experienced in my life, I've been very lucky to have always been, I guess, connected and knowing that there's a better future ahead for me, knowing that I had the support of the universe to point me in the right direction. And I've become, have always been, but have developed my spirituality a lot more and my intuition. Through all of the trauma that I've experienced, I've become more compassionate and understanding of what other people have gone through. So it was actually shortly after my mum passed away, after a 6-week battle with acute myeloid leukemia, that I realised it was just so intense. The feeling came to me, and the feeling and the message was, of course you treated me differently. Of course you did, because she was treated like that by her parents.
Mm-hmm.
And although she didn't treat my older sister like that, it doesn't matter. She just picked me. And I believe that like I said, I'm very spiritual, and I believe that I chose this path for my life on earth this time. So I chose her as my parent, and I chose the lesson. And now I choose to learn from it and become stronger and teach other people about how trauma affects us and also how we respond to it. For me, I became chronically ill later in life. However, at the time of, I think I was about 13, 12 or 13, I developed really, really severe chronic hay fever every single day. I was on antihistamines every single day, 2 or 3 of them. And it really made me very tired, and it made me, I guess it affected my learning. I slept very well, but it really added to the issues that I had about not feeling good enough. I always had tissues with me. I always felt pain in my back and neck and shoulders. I didn't realise, of course, at the time that was all related to not feeling supported in my life. My parents went to all of my sister's concerts and school events, but they never came to mine. So that behaviour continued. It wasn't just when I was younger. At the age of 17...
Can I just go back before
Yes.
you move on? Because there's another really good point around what you've just said.
Yes.
The other thing that children do very early on, as well as adopt these ideas about themselves, is they learn that the sick person gets the attention. The sick person seems to be more loved.
Yes.
And this comes up time and time and time again in the work that I do,
Yes.
where I'm actually able to say to people, so at what point did you make yourself sick because you knew you would get the love and attention that you needed?
Yes. Yeah.
And there's no judgment, there's no, because you can understand why as a child you would observe that what you're not getting, and whether you observe it in the home or outside, you notice that people who are sick get more attention. And because the mind and body, well, as you know, I'll let you talk about that, work together in such synergy,
Mm-hmm.
you can tell your mind subconsciously, you don't even have to be aware of it, that you need some attention, something needs to happen to get you more attention. Yeah.
That's
And
exactly
we
right.
can generate these things. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly right, Sarah. And it wasn't until my later years, probably around the age of maybe early 40s, late 30s maybe, that I've read a lot of books to educate myself on just every topic, life related, personal development related. And I realized one day that I need to give that attention to myself. I can't get that from anyone else. I need to heal myself. I need to love myself.
Yeah.
No, of course, our parents are meant to love us and support us and give us the reassurance and the feeling of security that we need, that I feel like I didn't get. We still have that responsibility when we're older to make sure that we love ourselves and that we stop that family curse and that we don't repeat that. So I didn't repeat that pattern with my daughter. We're very, very close. We love each other very much. We spend a lot of time together. And that actually was very difficult for my mother to to witness, because it really brought that attention to her that, you know, she failed even more so because I was able to have that relationship with my daughter, and it did make my relationship with my mother quite difficult because my daughter and I got along so well. I think it just made her really feel even more inadequate because she knew that in order to give that kind of love to another person, she would have to grow herself, because you can't give something you don't have yourself. So when I had later that revelation about my mother being treated the way she was when she was younger, I then all I had was compassion for her. And boy, it's making me a little bit emotional.
And honestly, that is such an incredible point that you just made about your mother watching your relationship with your daughter. A couple of things about that. Obviously, she's observing what she missed out on. She didn't have that with you, so she can see what she missed out on. But then this whole concept that you've done your work and you're getting what you need from your relationship with your daughter. But to change, she's actually got to face her failure and admit that she failed, and then do the work on herself. Yes. And that's what so many people, especially in that older generation, I know, like our generation now, kind of 35 to 55, people are really getting to grips with this and are really kind of excited about doing the work and discovering what else there is and another way of being, because we all realize that we're missing out on so much within each other. But for that older generation to take on those concepts, where it was all about don't wash your dirty washing in public and keep everything private, and it's a huge concept for them to then look at their failings and to do that work.
Exactly, and that would be part of the reason why she became so chronically unwell at an early age. She passed away at 66.
Right.
And acute myeloid leukemia being a blood disease, you know, when you look at the metaphysical reasons why that happened to her, it's because she really hated herself. She really, for a very, very long time, she was depressed. And I feel that she wanted to do the work on herself, but she didn't know where to start. She didn't want to make that admission to herself or to others that there was work to do. So she internalized all her grief and all her pain and her suffering. And that's what causes blood diseases, in my opinion, from the research that I have done. So any type of bone cancer or blood cancer.
I'm with you. I'm sure you've done, like, obviously it's not my focus, but in my work, what I know is that without exception, everyone that I work with who has trauma also has some kind of major illness. And I would agree with you. And again, this is so important for people to hear. These unresolved traumas, these unresolved emotional hurts, when they are left, that the body has to deal with them some way, and the body creates a major illness to draw your attention to them.
Yes.
But you don't know that.
Exactly.
So the physical illness gets treated, but we still ignore. But the other brilliant point you made, and I love this focus on the fact that she would have to admit it.
Yeah.
Again, what a fantastic point to make, that for anyone who needs to do this work, we have to admit our part. We have to look at ourselves, whether things happen to us. We're responsible for the healing, for our response to it, but we have to admit our role, what we've done since, and taking that on, admitting, taking responsibility, rather than blaming everyone else, because that's too easy to do. But the option is we admit and take responsibility. So that's our two choices, and it's easier to blame everyone else. And then deciding, okay, I understand my role, I'm taking responsibility, and I'm starting now.
Yes.
And that those are three, they're all linked, but huge, huge steps. And any of us who work in this space or have done this work, we know that that's everyone without exception. That's where we start.
Exactly.
That's the process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. But many people won't start it because it's painful.
It's too painful. Exactly. But what they don't understand is that in doing the work, the other side of the pain, yes, there's pain, but you're in pain anyway.
Yes.
And once you get through the pain, there's incredible joy and love and freedom. And this flow of abundance that we talk about
So true.
comes from self-love.
Yeah.
People look at the pain of going through this without actually thinking, well, I'm in terrible pain already. I've got nothing to lose. And they don't see the tremendous gain that is there. And the gain is immeasurable as far as I'm concerned, because it's never ending. It's just, amazing. So, thank you for that brilliant observation, just for sharing that about your mum. And that must have been very hard for you to see her going through that as well.
Yes, it was very, very hard. Yeah, because at this point I knew that, you know, she's a human being, she's a person, she's never really seemed happy to me in her life, and that really saddened me a lot. I knew that she was on antidepressants for most of her life, and I knew she didn't really want to be on them, but in order to go off them, of course, you need to go through the work. She was also a heavy smoker, so you know that also it's stuffing down a lot of the grief that she had. You know, any lung related issues which she also had, and by the way, she actually also did have breast cancer 15 years before she died. It's all about that nurturing. Breasts are all about nurturing yourself and nurturing from your mother. It was on the left-hand side, which is also the feminine side of the body. So I knew all this, but she wasn't open to hearing about any of this when, you know, she was going through it, and I wanted to help her, but she wasn't. She actually wanted to go through the whole process herself of chemotherapy and radiation, and then she did come out of that, and that healed. So I'm not sure at the time whether she did any type of internal reflection, which helped her, you know, to keep that cancer at bay. But when it came to her getting the acute myeloid leukemia, she actually wanted to die. She didn't want any treatment. She was only 66, but I think she knew at that time that that was it. It was time to go. She had just gone through a breakup 12 months prior to that with her second husband. And so to me, once again, I knew straight away that the emotional trauma of that breakup of her second husband was just another failure, and that was really the nail that hit the coffin, so to speak. Was, you know, that emotional trauma from another failed marriage, and feeling like she was a failure as a mother, which is something my father told me at her bedside when she was dying. She said, "You are a good mother. You are a good mother. You did a good job. You brought up the kids really well." And I said, "Yes, Mum, you did. You did your best." And she did. She did do her best. So, you know, when we're looking at our own trauma and healing our own trauma, we need to recognize, where did it come from? And it really did come from me, come from my childhood, and how I perceived myself through my mother's behavior towards me. But that was because she was hurting. So hurt people. And that's what I know now. I didn't know that at the time. I was way too young to make that reflection, or that you know, to make that link. So I have a better relationship with my mother now than I ever did, even though she's passed away. I constantly talk to her and ask her for reassurance or answers for certain things. And in fact, since she passed away, I completely healed my chronic illness that I developed at the age of about 39.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that, but I just want to touch on something else you said. You were talking about how your mum had always been unhappy. And really my response in my head to you saying that was, yeah, of course she was unhappy. She lived her whole life thinking that she wasn't enough.
Yes.
And this not enoughness is so destructive.
It is.
It's paralyzing. You know, I was talking to someone, I'm just going to read these words. I was talking to someone last night about this. Talking about, it was about her fear. It's how we are made to feel that we need to be, that what we are is not enough, and that we need to be what other people need us to be.
Yes.
And we can't. We can't do it because we don't know at any point exactly what they need. So we are set up for failure, and it's paralyzing when we think we're not enough. And these are the words that she came up with around this. And she said, I said, well, how do you get when you're living, when you have to live that way? You get tired, angry, resentful. You are empty, depleted, diminished, overwhelmed, numb. You think that you are pointless. You have no purpose, no worth, no value, and that you can be of no effect.
Exactly.
And I just thought, wow.
Yeah.
That's what she was feeling, looking at what the situation that she had been put in, made to feel all her life that she wasn't enough. And this is just sitting here.
Yeah.
And when you said about your mom, and I thought, wow, that's what your mom felt.
Yes, that's very powerful and very true.
Those words, when you put all those words together.
Yeah. You know, I think after my mum passed away and I made that realization about, or the connection rather, that, you know, she was very depressed and alone and struggling during her life, that it really helped me to heal. To be honest, at this point, I've been really chronically unwell for about 7 years. And just, all the connections just came together after she passed away.
Right.
I went to an event where I was a crew member. At this point, I was pretty sick. I had really chronic fibromyalgia symptoms. I was in pain every day. I found it difficult to stand for a long period of time. I found it difficult to speak without losing, my thoughts and where the conversation was headed. But I still wanted to be a part of society. I still wanted to be part of life and still wanted to dabble in what interested me. So I went to this event where I met a lady, and being as intuitive as I am, I guessed that she was pregnant. And she kind of looked around and said, "Oh my God, how do you know? Don't tell anyone." Because I'm not quite 3 months. So, and it's been quite difficult to get pregnant. My husband and I have been trying for 6 weeks, and then we went to this healer on the Gold Coast here in Australia, and he helped us. So within 8 weeks, I was pregnant. And then I just congratulated her and said, "Wow," and that's fantastic. And I don't know how I guessed. I'm sorry. I just had this feeling, and I said, I'd really like the number of this healer that you're talking about, because I'm not well. And so that was an absolute miracle that I even went to that event. And I almost did cancel because I wasn't feeling well. I had really severe insomnia for years and years. So I was only sleeping maybe 1 or 2 nights a week. So getting out of the house, meant having a shower and doing my makeup and all that energy to organize getting somewhere and then parking. And that really took a lot out of me. But I insisted on carrying on, not giving any power to my illness and my chronic conditions, because I knew way too much about the law of attraction. And I thought what I focus on, it grows, and what you give attention to grows. So I just kind of rejected the fact that I was sick and that I had these really severe symptoms. But so me going to this event was a miracle in itself. And then to meet this lady was just another miracle, I guess, because about 2 months later, there was a 2-month waiting list. About 2 months later, I went to see this healer, and he has been a very integral part to my healing. It's been a lot of that, the posture that I held was very wrong. The mindset that I had in regards to my illness and holding on to the illness needed attention. I was very bent forward. My shoulders were bent forward. My head was not in alignment with my spine. It was very, very much forward. So on a side photo, you could see my back, was aligned and I was straight, but my head was like it was stuck on the front of my body. And of course, so when we go through a lot of trauma, and we kind of curl up into, I guess, what would you call the, trying to think of the word of it. It's like a protective stance is what he referred to it as.
Yeah.
So it wasn't as bad as being on the floor in fetal position, but it's, when you're going through a lot of trauma, or healing from trauma, but it means all of your organs, even in your body, are being squashed. My liver was being squashed, and pancreas, everything. I was very, very much like this, very protective. Don't come near me. And now I've learned to stand up straight and tall and push my chest forward and keep my shoulders back and keep my neck lengthened because I had terrible neck issues. So now I walk with confidence, I stand with confidence, and just those two things have helped me so much. And I believe that my mother was behind all that.
Right.
She pushed me to go to that event. I met the lady came to me, she sat down next to me when we were waiting. I was early, so we were waiting for the doors to open. And she said, "Oh, you look like a lovely lady. I'll come and sit down, next to you and have a chat with you." And I said, "Oh, that's so lovely." And I said, that's how that all started. So there's no accidents. There's no accidents with how with the trauma that we go through and the lessons that it has to teach us. And we can either deny those lessons and be in reaction to them, or we can be open to them and open our heart and breathe in deep and put our shoulders back and ask, what is this lady teaching me, or what is this experience teaching me? I can react to it negatively, which means I'm rejecting it, or I can open up my heart and consider what that person's telling me, even if it's something that's normally outside of my comfort zone or level of understanding. I've learned to open my heart by standing up straight and not closing my heart off.
And that's a really big thing, to be open.
Yes.
Be open to opportunity and to possibility, because there is so much that we do not know that is happening around us. And when we're very narrow and closed-minded, it blocks so many avenues for our growth and for our healing.
Yeah.
So, but can you tell us more? Let's go back a bit and tell us about your illnesses, how they developed, how they affected you, and then this healing journey that you went on. And I think it's important here to talk about as well. I'll just mention you're talking about how debilitating this is. To have all of these things happening, and the whole point is that everything that we do, we have limited resources, and everything that we do takes from those resources. So whether it's positive or negative, and it's an absolute fact that when you are dealing with illness and emotional issues, mental health, any kind of health issues, it takes resources from elsewhere in your body to deal with those things. So what you're doing, you're feeding the negative stuff by depleting the positive. And that's why you get so run down and so diminished and so tired, because your body only has it's like fuel in a car. If you use it to race round a track, you then don't have the fuel to drive down a country lane.
Exactly.
If we're using up our resources to deal with all the negative stuff that's going on, we're not then concentrating on the growth and all the positive stuff, because we just don't have the resources to do it.
Yeah. Well, you're not open to it, are you, really? When you're stuck in that.
Yeah, all your energy is going the other way. And as you say, the more energy you give it, the more real it is, the bigger it gets, the more difficult it seems. As you say, what you focus on becomes your reality. So, but
Exactly.
yeah, tell us more about your illness, how all of this affected you, because I know you now work as literally as you use natural health, don't you? And you work is it an autoimmune coach to help people deal with all of this in a natural way?
Exactly. Yes, I'm an autoimmune recovery coach now that
Yeah.
I've healed myself. So yeah, and it's extremely rewarding. And I thank God that I've been through everything that I've been through, so that I have the compassion and understanding of what causes the disease and what you need to do to heal yourself. And you can absolutely do that
Oh,
naturally.
you can. So, but for you, where did your illness and your diseases start? What did it all become? What was the point where it all just got too much? And sounds like it was that event. And how did that healing then come about? What was the process that you went through for that?
Okay, so that event was at, let me think now, it was about 18 months ago, so not that long ago that I went to the event, and then 2 months later I went to see the healer. However, prior to that, I had been seeing a psychologist for about, I'd say, 10 years roughly. So,
Wow.
in fact, when my daughter was around the age of 6 or 7, we had, up until that point, we'd had a rough journey because she was born very unwell and we were constantly in and out of hospital. We were very, very close because of that. I was always there with her. I wasn't able to work because of that reason. So we were always together. She did go to daycare and things, so we had a healthy relationship. However, when she was about 6 or 7 years old, I believe she was 7, I had some trouble with disciplining her, because it was really the first time in her life that I needed to discipline her with regards to getting ready for school on time. And, I think actually at that time I had a part-time job and I needed to be at work at 8:30 or 9 o'clock or whatever the time was. And I needed to drop her to school by a certain time, and she was a little bit defiant. Not meaning to be, but I guess we had gotten used to having a fairly cruisy existence until then. And I went to see a kinesiologist because I was experiencing some pain in my back and in my neck and in my head. And this would have been, she's 20 now, so that was 13 years ago that it really all started back then. I started to suffer some sleeping problems and depression back then as well. So looking back, I believe that that's the age that I started to feel like I was really struggling when I was a child, around that age of 6 or 7.
Okay.
So, but I also feel that it was difficult for me to discipline because I was never disciplined. I lived in a silent household. I was never really a naughty child, so I guess I never really was disciplined for that reason either. Nobody spoke to me in the house. I had an older sister and a younger sister that was adopted into the family from Indonesia. We were living in Holland at the time, and I was 6 years old when my younger sister was adopted. And so she was very, very loved. My adopted sister was very, very loved. She was the baby of the family. She was so cute. And of course, once again, I remember looking at her like, why are you so loved and why are you so loved and what about me? There's in quite a few photos, that's very easy to see.
Let's not gloss over how significant that will have been for you. Because as a child, your concept of that is, why have you brought another child into love when you could just love me?
Yes, exactly. And also with regards to my older sister as well, her and I have never ever been able to have a relationship ever, never ever.
It's not.
It's just was never possible when we were younger, and I believe that it was because my parents loved her so much that she was just their number one child. And when I came along, I think that she was very concerned and worried about, oh, there's a new baby in the family. So she was actually quite nasty towards me. And, that was just, she was only 2. So, I don't hold anything against her for that. But that was just another way that I thought, God, my parents don't like me. They don't talk to me. They just leave me alone. They never take me anywhere or do anything with me. And but they love my sister. They take her everywhere. On the holidays, she would go to her favorite friend, and I had to go to my auntie's house, and there was no one there for me to play with. So it's just little things like that. To my parents, it probably meant nothing, but because I already had that underlying feeling of not being good enough or accepted, or there's something wrong with me, that then I was, all of the experiences that I had from that moment on really confirmed that I wasn't good enough. And then at some point, my parents decided that it would be good for me to go to a Montessori school, which is like, to me, I thought, oh, I've got to go to a special school, because they kept saying, oh, this is a really special school. It's a really good school. Now I know that it's just a different way of learning, and they're a great school. Montessori schools are great schools. So I was actually very lucky that I went to one of those, because it really assisted my learning. But the problem for me back then, when I was sent there, I thought, oh, there's something wrong with me. I need a different school to everybody else. So my parents obviously didn't think that I would feel like that, but that's how I interpreted it. So
isn't it interesting as well that your parents treated the two of you so differently? Like you said, no one took any notice of you.
Yeah,
and most of the talking we've done is about your mum, but there are two parents here.
That's right.
To have no concept how being ignored like that affects a child, when a child's needs, the fundamental needs, are to be loved, cherished, nurtured, encouraged, supported.
Yeah. I think the problem, Sarah, is that I had a very specific understanding of myself from the time that I was like around 6 or 7 years old, and I retracted, I withdrew. So I didn't speak to my parents either. I thought there was something wrong with me, that I wasn't worthy of communication or attention. So my parents then thought, oh, there's something probably a bit wrong with Marsha, So so it was both ways, really. It was the feeling that they gave me when I was younger, and then I responded to that with the same feeling. So we just bounced off each other like that. I was never really a needy child. I never really asked for anything. I thought I wasn't worthy of anything, I guess. So that's really where my pain started, I believe, and that's how my severe hay fever developed. And then, of course, I attracted a boyfriend that ended up being abusive.
Of course.
More so mentally, but a little bit physically, not too much. But that was just another reflection of me not loving myself enough, and thinking that I wasn't worthy enough, and that this is the way that it is. Luckily, I was bright enough to know that this isn't right. My parents were not abusive towards each other, so I knew that I deserved better. And I was also, at that point, I was very much spiritually supported. And the messages that I kept getting was to get out, get out, get out, do what you can to get out. Of course, in those situations, as we know, with domestic violence, it's very difficult. So I did put a domestic violence order against him. And then I dealt with 2 years of stalking and burning my car and things like that, stalking me at work, and won't go there. But, that was all very traumatic, of course. I dealt with that, but I didn't speak to anyone about it. I didn't really tell anyone about it. Both my parents knew, because I ran away from him one night and went back to mum's. And of course, she said, well, I told you so. He was no good for you. And, but, it's an experience that I had to go through, because it really helped me to grow into myself and to realize I'm worthy. Hang on a minute, what you're doing, that's not okay. And so every experience that we have, there's a blessing in it. There's always a silver lining. There's something in every experience that we have that we perceive as bad or is bad, that we can learn from. And I did definitely learn from that. So I married a man who was not like that at all. He was very, very quiet. And in fact, I went back to, marrying my dad. So somebody who didn't talk at all, somebody who didn't really pay much attention or had much self-confidence. We didn't really have much communication. We both, we had a beautiful daughter out of the marriage, but the marriage broke down when I was 30. We had a very successful business in the security industry. I didn't have to work. This was in my 20s. Taylor, my daughter, was born when I was 27, and I had office managers set up and staff to run the business for me, and I was just kind of dipping in and out when I needed to. So, but because when my daughter was born and she was very unwell, I was always at the hospital with her, and I was very sleep deprived, so I wasn't really on the ball. And at that point, my husband thought it would be a good idea to completely empty all the bank accounts and take all the money and bankrupt me. I was the director of the business, so pretty much overnight, I found myself going, from very wealthy to being on welfare and having nowhere to live and without a car because the cars
in itself.
Yeah, the cars were leased through the company. So I then had to borrow more money from my dad, who had invested in that business, and he lost money because of what happened. So my already tarred relationship, I guess, with my father all my life was now scarred even more because he thought I was involved, that I somehow ripped him off and took all his money. How could I not know? You're the director of the company. How could you not know this? So once again, my level of self-worth took an absolute nosedive, and I tried to explain, but I just couldn't cope with it. I was in hospital with my daughter all the time. How did this even happen? I was in shock. So I had to go bankrupt, which is just not in me at all. So I felt very guilty and very responsible, and I developed anxiety, and my depression really took off then as well. So that's when the sleeping issues also started, because I was scared that I would bump into some of these people that I owed money to, that I couldn't pay because I was now a single mum without a job and renting a house. And so all of those things really impacted my health a lot. I then met another man who I dated for 5 years, and he was just incredibly inspirational, motivational. He was a really good role model for me and for my daughter. He was kind of like the father I never had. So he was 15 years older than me. And yes, that was a fantastic relationship that really showed me my worth. I really grew a lot. I ended up looking into a lot of personal development because I could see that, what he was showing me was something that I needed more of. I was very hungry for more information. I went all around Australia to all these different, events, health events, as well as personal development events. And I met some amazing people, and in fact I ended up working for one. His name is Keurig Ashley. He's in Australia. He's a little bit like the Australian version of Tony Robbins, and worked with him for about 4 years, which was just so fabulous. I ended up being in a position where I was managing his Life Success Club, and so very slowly I started to build on my self-worth and confidence, and I loved that journey so much. However, the relationship ended, and it was because he didn't want to get married and I did after 5 years. I just thought, hang on a minute, I don't want to date forever. I want to get married again, and I want to have, the relationship and the marriage that I know I deserve. So that ended, but that's when really my problems began. And I developed really severe insomnia, chronic fatigue, memory loss, cognitive dysfunction. And I started to dabble in all sorts of different diets and natural therapies like kinesiology and psychotherapy. I even had psychotherapy, osteopathy. I did some EFT tapping. I think I probably counted about 15 different types of healing modalities that I tried, acupuncture, massage, you name it, I've done it all. So I spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and really, to be honest, I just got worse and worse over the years. I ended up on heavier antidepressants, and I was still taking anti-inflammatories every day for the pain, and I was on antihistamine still for my hay fever, and so things just really progressed from there. The food allergies just got worse and worse, and I wasn't able to eat as much as what I once was. I then started to experience severe pain in my lower back and in my neck, and it was very difficult to walk sometimes. So I started to see the doctor more, and looked at even having some surgery. The doctor also suggested that I go on medical retirement, but I refused. That's definitely not what I wanted. All the symptoms that I had were invisible. So I would go to the doctor always looking okay. I would make sure that I would only go on the days that I was well enough to go. I would have a shower, I'd do my hair, I'd put on lots of makeup, especially enough, to cover the dark circles under my eyes because I wasn't sleeping, and I had quite a bit of stress. So no, I knew that I would heal. I knew that I would heal from this right from the start. So I didn't want to accept the disability pension, which is what that really meant, from that from what she offered me. And I knew I had more in me. I'd done so much personal development. I'd been to so many health events that I knew I could heal. I knew I could heal, but I didn't know what to do. The problem with fibromyalgia, which is a diagnosis I literally had to fight for, because I knew there was something wrong with me, and I thought, if I can just put my finger on what it is, then I can concentrate on my healing. So it was a magazine article I read one day that when it got right to the end of the article, and this lady had experienced and mentioned all of these symptoms that she had, which I related to absolutely every single one of them, was at the end of the article that she said she had fibromyalgia, and up until that point I didn't even know it existed. So I took that magazine article to my doctor and said, this article, this is me, this is all me. I have all of these symptoms. I was starting to get blurry vision. I was starting to get a really bad involuntary tic in my neck. I had bladder issues. I had vertigo. She had diagnosed me with vertigo a couple of months before that, because I would be really dizzy. And, coupled with not sleeping well and having really bad chronic fatigue as well. And sometimes coming home from work and lying down for 3 hours, that was just not normal. So, she then reluctantly but did diagnose me with fibromyalgia. So that's when my research started on fibromyalgia, and I went online. But there was really no recognition of it. It was all in the patient's head as far as the internet was concerned. And,
actually, it's the body's response, isn't it? It's the body's response to extreme emotional trauma.
Exactly.
That's what it is. That's what I've discovered. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. And a lot of people, when they come to me with their extreme emotional issues, and they're talking about things like fibromyalgia and other autoimmune diseases, and I've got to the point where I kind of just say to them, well, don't worry about that, because as part of our work, that will disappear.
Yes.
That we will heal that without necessarily even focusing on it in an extreme way. And you're right, people might then go away and do some work, diet work to support it.
Yeah.
But realizing that it is due to this extreme emotional trauma. And I'd written down earlier, you were having trauma after trauma, and everything was just compiling. And in the end, your body doesn't know what to do with it. So it just creates, it literally attacks itself.
Yeah, exactly. But the other,
I'll let you explain that.
Yeah, the other interesting thing is that I started to heal when I started going to all of the personal through all the personal development, because
of course
you have to go through something, to heal it. You have to deal with it. You have to acknowledge it. You have to love it and say, thank you for the lessons you are teaching me. Thank you for teaching me that I am strong enough. Thank you for teaching me that I can have compassion for people. Thank you for teaching me that I can have forgiveness for people who have hurt me. It's all of those things. I've got goosebumps right now. But it's really when you start going through the healing process of, reading the books, going to the seminars, listening to the podcasts, that these things will come up. And so it is really, really important that when you are going through your healing process, that you do have that support, whether it's a counselor or a psychologist or a general healer like I'm seeing on the Gold Coast. you need someone in your corner to support you through it and to help you to make sense of it. Kinesiology was my friend. That really, really helped me to remove the blocks that I had. Towards the end, I wasn't able to have massage because that would really exacerbate my pain, because a lot of the pain that I had was inflammation. And inflammation is just anger, basically. Inflammation in the body is anger expressing itself. And so when I saw the kinesiologist several times, that was really, really, really beneficial for me, because every time, I would go and just deal with one thing at a time. And it could be something that happened when I was little, or it could be something that happened with my daughter. So, very slowly we worked through those things. So healing is not an overnight process. The more trauma that you've had, the longer it can take. In my opinion, you may have different opinions, Sarah, but I've had a lifetime of trauma where I've been sexually abused by my uncle when I was little as well. And then I was sexually abused again by a different chiropractor through my healing process. There's lots of things that I've experienced that I had to heal in myself, and I had to thank the person for the lesson, because it taught me that I am strong, that I do deserve more. And now I'm really in a place of my life where I can be that strength for somebody else, and I can give that advice to my clients who are seeking healing from autoimmune issues. So just to go back to my condition, it really it got a lot worse, actually, Sarah, where I started to experience things like bladder incontinence when I was 45. So initially I went to the doctor, and she said, look, let's just do a bladder test, a function test, bladder function test. And that came back normal. And most of the time, all of my blood tests came back normal. But it was really at the start of last year when my food allergies were so severe that my whole face would swell, and I started to experience anaphylactic type reactions to different foods.
That's amazing.
And, so my whole face would swell up, and my brain felt swollen, and it actually was. It was the inflammation on my brain that really affected me and my thinking, my cognitive thinking, and my memory. So things just slowly got worse and worse, and to the point where I started to experience something called an MS hug, which I didn't know what that was.
Yes.
And so I was even scared to go to my doctor and explain to her the series of events that took place, where when I was in her office, I explained that I felt like I was being constricted by a snake around my chest, and that all the air was being pushed out, and it was painful, and I couldn't take a breath in. And that lasted for about 20 or 30 seconds. And I didn't know that when it happened the first time, I thought this, oh God, this is it. I was at a point where I could hardly stand for longer than a few minutes because I was shaking so much. I had, very, very bad trembling. I couldn't lie down for long in one position, or sit for a long time in one position, because it would just be so painful.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
This is very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously here you are, you're on this journey, this health journey, and you're declining. You've got all these things wrong with you. You keep going to the doctor. At any point, did anyone suggest to you that this was emotional? Did anyone say, let's have a look at all your symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Now tell me what happened to you. What have you been through?
Well, my doctor did ask at some point, are you still seeing your counsellor? And I said, yes, I am. And the counsellor has been absolutely fantastic. As a single mum, I needed that because I didn't have good role models as parents. So I didn't know how to parent. So that was really, really beneficial for me. But yeah, the time that in the appointment before this particular one where I was explaining my symptoms to her, she had suggested that I see a psychiatrist. But I was really quite offended by that. And to be honest with you, I didn't really know at the time exactly what a psychiatrist could do for me. But her way of expressing that I needed to see a psychiatrist was because I needed more, further investigation, emotionally and mentally, and more medication. And I was very much against medication. And at this time, I was on about 5 or 6 different medications. And I was really unhappy with that because of what I knew about natural healing. the thing is, I was that unwell. I was that far away from accessing what was in my brain about what I had learned about natural healing and health. I didn't have access to that. I didn't have
Yeah.
access to the things that I knew about healing naturally. But yes, my doctor definitely did suggest that I see a psychiatrist, which at that point I became quite resistant to going back to her. But I had no choice. Look, she was my GP. I mean, I had a choice, of course, but I didn't know any better. I was in survival mode. You know, you just don't really know what to do with yourself when you're just holding on every day. You're just going to someone. And anyway, so when I suggested to her, when I mentioned to her the symptoms that I was having and the tightening of the chest and not being able to take a breath in, that's when she mentioned the MS hug. And at that point, I'm just like, hang on, did you just say MS? And she said, well, yeah, it makes sense because of all the other symptoms that you've had all over the years. And so then finally I realized what it was that I was dealing with. I knew that MS was an autoimmune disease. And I had heard in the past that autoimmune you can overcome. And so I didn't know that right at that moment, though, when she gave me that diagnosis. It was probably 3 or 4 days later. Because for those few days, I really was very scared about my future. And my daughter was about 17, and I had heard, of course, oh my God, MS, you can't heal MS. What am I going to do? Is this the end for me? So I was in a real panic state. And then 3 days later, I was invited to a health event by a friend of mine where a doctor from the US came to speak about a stem cell regeneration product. And she then said that she had been on it and that her 2 daughters who were dependent on drugs all their adult lives had been on it and were now off their drugs and doing really well. I thought, okay, this is something I might look into. So I went along to the event and I listened to the doctor that was speaking there. And I started on this stem cell regeneration product, which was absolutely incredible. Within 8 weeks, I was back at full-time work. But also, there was another doctor at that event who was very well known for healing autoimmune naturally. Hence the reason I called my business Healing Autoimmune Naturally.
Right.
So we had a long chat on the phone later that week, and he put me onto a protocol. And a lot of it was actually, one of the products was the stem cell regeneration product. So there was 2 doctors talking about this product. I thought, okay, I might be onto something here. By this time, remember, I had spent tens of thousands of dollars and I'm still in debt from that. I had to get credit cards because I couldn't work because I was so sick. But I went onto this protocol after talking to this doctor on the phone for about 2.5 or 3 hours, I believe it was. And all of the things he explained to me about why I became sick, I understood. I finally understood. I remembered. Once I talked to a natural doctor who knew what I was going through and explained everything, I then agreed with him and I knew what he was saying was true. And so I started on the protocol, which included an intense gut healing protocol as well. I believed at that point that I had already done all of the emotional and mental healing. All I needed now was to help boost my body. I needed my body to recover from the trauma it had been through. And I know that healing is not just throwing some natural medications or natural therapies at someone. It's holistic. And I have done all of the holistic healing. In my mind, I was perfectly happy and healthy and fine, but my body needed some support. So all of the nutritionals that he put me onto were just there to support my body's natural biochemical process to heal itself.
Right.
So together with an elimination diet that I had created for myself to stop the severe anaphylaxis and food allergies, I was well within 4 months, completely symptom-free within 4 months.
And that's just amazing. And I think it's so important for anyone listening to understand that so much of what we are led to believe about what we need in terms of medicine. I hate to say it, I'm not a doctor, I'm a hypnotherapist, but from my work as well as the work that you do and plenty of other holistic and natural healers like us, we know that people are suffering from anxiety, depression, all these autoimmune diseases, extreme migraines, insomnia, all of these things unnecessarily. MS, as you say, look, you were offered a disability pension. Imagine if you had been offered that and you accepted it, and that being disabled becomes your reality.
Exactly.
Now, for your life, that is your life. For the rest of your life, you are now this diminished, incapable, vulnerable, disabled person. And it was completely unnecessary. And I really want people to take this on board and to listen to what your story is saying. That naturally we can heal ourselves of literally anything and everything. Have to understand that everything that happens to us impacts the mind and the body. But what has been created can be uncreated.
Exactly.
All we need is the right support and find the right person to help you. Look at those. This is like a sliding doors moment. I can
didn't want that to be my identity. That was not going to be my identity. That was not congruent with the vision of myself that I had for my future.
Right.
So I thought, no, that's not my path.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't match what I have up here.
But I'm sure you and I come across plenty of people who have been dealing with extreme depression, let's say, for 40 years. That's not uncommon. 40 years. Because, and part of the problem is they've been told that they will always have it. And that becomes their reality.
That's one of my messages now when I talk to people, is to take control of your health and healing journey. Question everything. Ask if it's, is this in alignment with who I really am? Do I want to do this? Is this my reality? Do I resonate with this? And like you said earlier in the conversation, it's something that we attach ourselves to. We're told, oh, there's no cure. I mean, I was even kicked out of a support group for fibromyalgia because I suggested that I healed myself, and they're like, well, how can you be so mean? Don't give people false hope. That's so awful. How could you do that to us?
I get that all the time with CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. When I tell people that you don't have to live with the symptoms, that we can totally look at the podcast that I'm doing. It's full of the stories of women who've overcome complex post-traumatic stress. But you will get kicked out of groups and things. I've been kicked out of a group. It was called Anxiety Let's Find the Cure. And I went in there and dared to suggest that the cure is, I know what the cure is, this is how you do it, it's not that hard, and it's up to you. You will get kicked out for suggesting that people can take control and that they can heal. Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that. There are so many of us working in the natural healing space that get kicked out of places for suggesting that you can.
I'm a lot more subtle these days.
I am sometimes, not always. But if it's suggesting that you can take control. No one's even suggesting that it's easy. There is a path, it's a journey. But the fact that you can either hang on to this label or you can reject this label and say, I am going to be and become something else.
Yes, that's right.
That's the choice. So, thank you so much for that. What an amazing lesson. Of what you've done and the healing and where you've got to. Now you are an absolute vision of health. But it's very poignant for me, like, to think that you were offered disability, and imagine what your life would have been if you had accepted that.
Yeah.
So many people just do that. They just accept, well, this is what my doctor is saying, so this must be true. Yes, so this must be my life now. We get accused of giving people false hope.
Yes.
But a lot of people have no hope.
That's right.
Add their hope. But no one looks at the doctor and says, well, how can you do that to someone? Now you've taken away all their hope. You've just told them that they're disabled. People just accept what the doctor says.
Exactly, yes.
But it's the same thing. What the doctor has done is give you no hope, tell you that you are now disabled.
However, I do believe that there is a big movement happening in the world at the moment where,
thank God, yes, there is.
Thank God for, podcasts like this and people like you and myself that, sharing our stories through social media and, reaching more and more people. And I think once, somebody with a certain type of condition, hears different people and their stories, that we might give them a glimmer of hope that they can heal. And I certainly have been that for people who have been close to, taking their own lives. I have actually heard of people who have taken their lives because of fibromyalgia. So at this point, I would like to just a shout out for anyone with fibromyalgia out there, or if you have family members or friends that they say they have fibromyalgia, just send them a little bit of love. Ask, how can I support you? We all need support in a different way. Sometimes it's nice just to come around and do the floors for that person, or bring a meal, or, can I get your shopping, or shall I come over and we'll have a cup of tea, or, even if you're in bed, I'll sit at the end of your bed. Fibromyalgia is really, really debilitating, and there isn't enough support because there isn't enough acknowledgement of it. There isn't enough research about it. Doctors don't understand it. They don't know what to provide or what to give. They think it's, in the patient's head. People do often have different types of symptoms. It doesn't present the same for every single person. But at this point, I'd really like to just, give a shout out to anyone who has a friend or a family member, that suffers from fibromyalgia, to please reach out to them and give them the support that they need, because it is real and it is extremely debilitating. And, we need to be there for each other. Very important.
And the other question that's really, really important to ask someone is, what happened to you?
Exactly.
What happened to you?
We have someone to talk to.
And then get them to go and to talk to the right person. Someone who is trauma trained, someone who is trauma aware and understands the impact of trauma on the mind and the body, and someone who totally gets and understands that the physical symptoms they are experiencing are as a result of it's a response to the emotions, to the experiences that they are carrying. That is very, very important. And someone who also is absolutely certain that they can heal. Someone who is not someone who is going to tell you that you are stuck with this, but someone who's going to connect the dots and understand the instant you start to speak what sits behind this. Like on this podcast, like we do, we know what sits behind it.
Yes.
Go to someone who knows, and someone who is going to say, you can recover.
Yes.
You can absolutely get over this. What happened to you?
Yes. Yes.
Let's explore that. Let's get rid of that. And then let's get rid of what it's causing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And at this point, I'd also like to mention that part of my healing process meant that I had to step away from my family. Because to me, and even when my mum was alive, their behaviour actually became quite toxic towards me. And it was because I didn't follow their footsteps. It was because I wasn't like them. It's because I always felt spiritually guided and supported. It was because I had a vision that I would be successful and I would have a business and I would be a kind person and I would I would communicate, and I would help others. And that's all in my makeup. That's who I am as a person. I was different to them, and I challenged them, and they tried to keep me back. They tried to stop me from that growth. They were mean to me when I mentioned something about feeling awesome, or having a wonderful job, and those were words that they just didn't have in their vocabulary. So they found it very difficult to resonate with me and to communicate with me even more. And so I got to a point where I needed to remove myself from the family so that I could grow. And that's a really, really important message that I wanted to share today.
Thank
Yes,
you.
because there is a way that you can do it with respect to yourself by asserting your boundaries in a loving way. So it really all started one day when I decided that I needed to grow, and I could not do that within my family unit. I moved out of home when I was 13. I was in the foster care system for about 4 years, so that's when it really started. But even as I got older, I wasn't as involved with my family as my other two sisters were with my parents. I didn't feel the connection with them. They really had nothing to offer me. But I still went along to birthdays and parties and weddings and things like that. Not all the time, but I found that I couldn't even go to those events because I would feel physically, spiritually, emotionally unwell. So I had to stop going because I knew that I was on a path of growth and development and change, and I was growing into that person that I could see myself to be, that I had the ability to be. And that did not involve the behaviors of my family. But because I'm such a family-oriented person, I love the concept of family. It's something that I so deeply miss and had missed all my life. I was never part of a family. It's something I always really wanted. But so saying no to that when it's something that I really wanted to say yes to, that caused a great deal of distress and anxiety for me as well. However, it got to the point where I could not go because I would feel sick. So when the invitations came, for example, I think it was my dad's 60th, I just said, no, thank you. I won't be coming. I didn't explain myself because I don't have to explain myself. I would get a text message back saying, why not? What's going on? Are you all right? I'd say, thank you, but I'm just not comfortable. So I didn't make a big drama out of it. I didn't blame them for things. I didn't say, well, you didn't love me for 16 or whatever years or 25 years, so I'm not coming. I didn't want to hurt them for the hurt they caused me because I didn't want to be them. I wanted to grow and be something else. I didn't want to become the abuser as well. That wasn't in alignment with my value system. So I didn't see my family or talk to them for periods of 2 or 3 years at times. And then the most recent time was about 7 years. And during that time, I was really able to seek the help and support that I needed through various support services, including my counsellor. I was attending the personal development seminars. I was reading lots of books. I was able to understand where I was in life and that I was okay with the choices that I was making for my own life. I don't have to follow my family dynamic. I can change it. I can stop it in my generation. And I have done that. And now I have the respect of my father. When I made contact with him again, he was very, very happy. I said to him, Dad, I'm sorry I haven't seen you for a long time. I've missed you. And, I apologise for the hurt that this may have caused you. My absence may have caused you. If you're open to having a coffee or lunch one day, let me know. And he called me, I think, the next day or that night. And he was just absolutely over the moon. And, because I hadn't retaliated with the pain that, that I felt, because perhaps he didn't even know that I felt the way that I have felt all my life. So I have a great relationship with Dad now. I have a great relationship with my mum, even though she's passed over. I have forgiven her for everything that she has done, because I understand that she couldn't give me what, she couldn't extend that love beyond my sister. It was just impossible. It was too hurtful for her. She couldn't do it. She didn't have it in her. And I get that. I understand it, and I love it, and I thank her. I thank her for all the messages and all the lessons that she has given me, because without all of those experiences, I wouldn't be the person I am now. And that's such an important part of healing the trauma, is knowing that everything that has happened to us has been there because we've actually spiritually asked for those lessons to help us to evolve and grow into the people that we know we can be. And I think often we feel sick because we are not allowing ourselves that growth, and we stay stuck.
Yeah. The stuck is definitely what makes you unwell, when you are not experiencing the growth and expanding as a person in the way that you know you could and should be.
Yeah.
What a wonderful a wonderful point there, the way that you have let people know. This holds a lot of people back, the fear of, well, if I change and if I start to put myself first and if I start to take control, other people might not like it. They might not, but that's not your responsibility. And there might be people that you have to let go, but you will only have to let go the people that are the wrong people, that are affecting you in a negative way.
Yeah.
But this is very much a fear that people have, and obviously as healers we come across it all the time. People's extreme fears about what other people are going to think of them if they suddenly start to take care of or love themselves. Like you said, your family hated it when you expressed something great about yourself. Well, tough.
Yeah.
That's not love, that's fear.
Exactly.
Move into operating from love. Love for yourself, love for others, love for life, and that's what you will attract. And you have to let go of people who are operating from fear, because it's all about control and diminishing, and you have to get free from it.
Yes. I would encourage anyone to approach their family and friends and say that, you need time for yourself, that you love them very much, that they are a great source of inspiration and lessons for you, but you need to take time out from the relationship for an unknown period of time to heal yourself. And I think we need to feel more comfortable about being able to say that to the people that we love. And they may still retaliate. They may still, say, oh, well, whatever, well, if you don't think I can help you, it's okay. You've said your piece. It's okay. You're still holding yourself in a higher regard, in a higher energy. And it's safe to do that. The thing is, what I've experienced from moving away from my family for many, many years is that now that we've come back together, our relationship is better than I ever could have imagined. And I have their respect and I have their understanding. And during that last 7 years that I didn't speak to my dad, he grew too. He probably reflected about what it is that, may have contributed to me not wanting to speak to him for that time. And since then, when we've had conversations and I've actually written a chapter in a co-authored book recently that I shared with him, he's very, very proud. And he also has grown from what I've shared. And so it's inevitable that the people around us will grow when we grow. So, some people that when I counsel people during my program to healing autoimmune, I explain to them, you don't have to fix your husband or wife. Mostly it's the husband or partner. You just be the example. You just heal. You just start eating healthy for yourself. Your husband you don't have to make him eat healthy. You're not fixing his health. You're fixing your health. So you start doing what you need to do for you. you might have to cook 2 meals for a while because, you'll still want to keep eating what he's eating while you're on the path now to health and healing, and he will see the difference. Be the example, and he will probably say one day, "Oh, that looks all right," or you might have leftovers of your meal, leave it in the fridge. You've cooked him his favorite, and he may take those leftovers by accident for lunch and eat them and go, "Wow, that's really good. Can we have that tomorrow night?" So it happens. It just happens naturally, and you have to let go of the outcome. You have to let go of that expectation. It's going to happen. The people around you will grow as you grow, and same with my dad.
And your fear of other people's responses, that they're not your responsibility. You are only responsible for you. Like, I love what you said earlier about having that conversation with your family, and then you touched on it. So many people would have a fear of their family's reaction to that. Well, your family's reaction to it doesn't matter. This is about you. They are making it about them. Whereas anyone who's operating from real love from you will support you in what you feel you need to do for yourself. And if they don't do that, it's irrelevant. You don't have to take it on board. It's not your responsibility. If they choose to make it about them, then so be it. But they are operating from fear. That's what you need to understand. Fear.
They're actually seeing.
Gone.
Sorry. They're actually seeing a strength in you that threatens them.
Yes. Yeah. So so all those things. So that's an amazing, fantastic point there about having that conversation, and not. Does that sound?
Yeah. So now I'm, really, really enjoying life and sharing all of my experiences over the last, 47 years basically, but in general the last 18 months since I healed myself from severe chronic illness. And like people, since I've written my chapter in my co-authored book, people are now like, "Why didn't you tell anyone? How come you didn't tell?" I didn't know. I mean, they knew I was sick, but not to the degree that I was. And I decided, I said, well, I didn't really want to give it the power over me. I didn't want to admit that I had, the issues that I had, because I wanted to heal myself. I didn't want to attach myself to the illness that was not my identity. And they understand now, and they have a better understanding of their friends and family who are suffering chronic illness as well, that we want to continue in society as we are. And the days that I did go out to see friends for a drink, a cup of tea or whatever, that's all I could pretty much manage. That really took a lot of time and effort to go out. And I didn't, people, when you go out and they say, "Oh, so how are you?" You don't want to say, "Well, I haven't slept, I've got pain in my back, I've got bladder intolerance, I've got a pain in my head." You don't go through all those things. You say, "Oh, I'm pretty good, just, you talk about the things that are happening in your life or your family or with your daughter or your pets or whatever, but you don't go and talk about how sick you are." So that's how come people didn't know how unwell I really was. So once again, I would really encourage people to be kind to others. You never know that the degree that people are suffering when you're standing behind them in the supermarket, or and they're taking a while to find their money or their credit card or whatever. Just be patient, be kind. We don't know what other people are suffering from. But I think, the courage you will find to heal. That we all have the courage. It's just a matter of taking control of our health and healing journey, and taking control of our mind, and filling our mind with positive, reinforcing positive messages, what do you call it, anything that's optimistic, future focused, not pain focused. There's always something in us when we are experiencing pain, that it's trying to teach us something. So maybe start asking different questions. What is this trying to teach me? Breathe into that pain. Breathe into the pain in your lower back or into your neck. Sit still and meditate and ask, what is it that you're trying to teach me? Because healing does really come from such a deep part within us, and we have the answers. We have the answers within ourselves. Yes, we do need support from trauma healing specialists or what do you call it, counsellors or the like. But we actually do have the answers within ourselves.
Yeah, no, does definitely come from within, as
It does.
you said. And the fact that you can take control. I love that message, that you can take control of your health and your healing journey.
Yes.
That you can do that. Yeah. Thank you.
My
Thank you so much. Obviously, we'll put all of any links and anything that you send us, we'll put in the show notes. But what's the and we'll put your contact details there too. So, what's the best way for people to contact you if they're interested in looking at this natural way of healing their immune system?
Okay, the best way to contact me would be to go to my website, which is marshashults.com. So that's quite easy to remember. There is a link there to a free 15-minute discovery call. So we can discuss anything you like and discover during that call whether I can be of service to you, at which time we could then perhaps book a 60-minute consultation, which is at that time we will go through all of your physical symptoms and look at how we can support your body to heal itself. And then together, I guess, with your help, Sarah, as well as the trauma specialist coach, that people can actually take control and heal from any type of autoimmune condition. However, I would like to offer a half price special because I really do want to reach as many people as I can. So my 1-hour consultations, I generally charge $97. But I'd like to give a 50% discount to anyone who contacts me, from this recording who would like support.
Okay.
And I'd rather people spend that time and money on other supports that they need. So yeah, that's something that I can offer them. We can discuss that in the 15-minute free discovery call.
Yeah, so they can just mention that they heard you on the podcast Becoming the Light from the Shadows of Abuse and have that 60 minutes for half price with you. Yes.
Yeah, that would be great. I've also written a book called I Fly, and that's available on Amazon, so you can read my story in there as well. It's in a little bit more detail.
Right.
And I actually do sell that on my website as well, so either or, they can get in contact with me that way.
Great. Well, make sure we've got all of that and we'll put that up. And hopefully people who are struggling, and like we all know, anyone who has trauma also has physical issues. They really do. The two go hand in hand for a reason. Your body and mind were not made to deal with the kind of traumas that so many of us are subjected to. We're made for a much simpler kind of life, which is why our body and mind react in such extreme ways when these things happen.
Yes.
So,
I'm not just about healing the body and the mind. I'm about creating the dream life that you have for yourself, because that's what I've done. I've created my dream life, and it's still unfolding before me, which is so exciting. But I'm about really coming back to that vision that you had of yourself, perhaps when you were in your 20s or 30s, that you would, live in your dream house or drive your dream car or help a certain charity or whatever your dreams are. It's not just about healing the body and becoming well. It's about thriving. I'm here to support you on your healing journey, and then support you on your journey to become the person that you've always wanted to be, that you've seen yourself at, to really thrive and help others perhaps and find your niche or your purpose in life. That's what I'm about. It's not just about healing. It's about really becoming you.
Yeah, and how wonderful that you were at that crossroads and you were offered disability, and what you chose instead was thrive.
Yes,
that's exactly. Just how wonderful is that as a concept and as a visual.
Yes.
At that crossroads, and one road says disability and one road says thrive, and you did thrive. That's literally what you did.
Yes, it's a choice.
And you made it happen.
Yeah,
you made it happen. Fantastic.
Yeah, but we just need the right support, structure around us to make it happen. So
Yeah, no one is saying you can do this. None of us, like no one I've interviewed, no one I work with, like myself, I don't do this stuff by myself. Even now I have mentors and support people. We all need the right people around us to get us to where we're going. And I think so many people somehow feel bad as if they should be able to do this alone, or as if they will do it alone. And pretty much that's really, most of us don't do it alone. Yeah. So thank you.
Very true.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for everything you've shared, amazing points you made. I'm sure it's going to be of incredible interest to people, and I'm particularly grateful to you for sharing this message and supporting me in my mission. My mission is to get the message out there that none of us have to be stuck with this disability label, that
Exactly.
we all have everything within us that we need to heal. We can all take control and heal. So thank you so much for that. Has been so clear in everything you've said, and I appreciate that so much. And luckily there are more of us out there with this message and this mission, and we can all just help and support each other, and eventually we'll change the world. Not in my lifetime, but let's sow some seeds.
That's right. We're sowing the seeds, and supporting each other. It's wonderful. The healing journey is absolutely wonderful. You will attract all the right people into your life. You'll make beautiful new friends. You'll learn new skills. You'll learn about yourself. There's nothing to be scared of. You are going to grow and evolve, and it is an absolute beautiful process. And there'll be a few bumps along the way, but you'll know that you're on the path to healing and wellness and thriving.
And isn't that true, that when you let go, you attract the right people?
Yes,
absolutely. Thank you so much for that.
My pleasure. Thank you
for everything. Really appreciate you being on here and telling your story in the way you have, and sharing your insights. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Bye for now.